Morning brewers, it's brew day. I've got my mash running there. I've got 10 minutes. I need to do a step change, so I thought I'd just talk a bit about yeast and yeast harvesting. So this is brew 18. It's another golden ale around the 4% that I'm experimenting with. And in those 18 brews I've done, I've used various yeasts, and I found one that I like in particular and I'm probably going to use quite regularly, and that's White Lab 002 English ale yeast. And that's because I'm in England and I like to brew English style bitters and pales and things like that quite often. So I got interested in yeast harvesting, partly because of the cost. It's nearly £7 now per packet of yeast, and partly because I've been interested in some of the blogs which talk about X generation of the same yeast and how it's toning in the character of the beers that they're brewing, etc. Now, until recently, I'd always assumed that you harvest yeast from the brew, so you scoop it off the krausen like a commercial brewer would, or somehow harvest it from the slurry. Until I came across an article on Brewlosophy, I never pronounced that, which said no, try harvesting it from your starter. So the principle is, you buy your yeast and you double its size basically, put one half aside for your next brew and brew with the other half and then repeat. And the guy had got to about generation 12 in that way. So I got really interested in that, and there was a link to another website which has a calculator, so you can give it your target, tell it the beer that you're pitching into eventually with your starter, but also the excess yeast count that you want to make, and it'll tell you the starter size and the starter strength, etc. And part of that calculation takes into account how you're going to aerate the starter. You could use a stir plate like this, or you could just shake it by hand or leave it alone. And if I didn't use a stir plate, it would take 3 generations of starter to get the starter that I need. So you start one, put it into another starter, run that, put it into another starter, run that. Quite a faff. So having a stir plate greatly speeds up that process. So I set about making this one. Lots of videos out there on YouTube about how to make them. Basically, this plastic box with a computer fan inside, 2 magnets glued to it, and then of course you drop a stir bar into the liquid and the fan spins and stirs like that. So all you need is a plastic box, a switch, a little power supply. I discovered that the fan went too fast and it just threw the stir bar off all the time, so found a little circuit on eBay as well that just gave me a speed control of that fan. It has to be the right circuit because the fans are digital. Just using a potentiometer apparently wouldn't work with a digital fan. So the whole thing cost me less than £20, whereas a stir plate to buy that can cope with 1.5 litres of starter was £150–160. I know you can buy a lot of yeast for that, can't you, before you need to spend £160. So there you are, this is Y Yeast 002. It's been in this starter for about 3 days with the stir plate running all the time in my brew fridge. I've just brought it down for the video. And you can see here how flocculent this yeast is, because this isn't just a homogeneous slurry. Look, you can see the yeast spinning around. In fact, if I slow this down, you can just see the yeast already flocculating. Look how fast it's dropping out of there. So I'm going to have to keep it stirred up while I pour out my harvesting amount. Look how much yeast there is in there. You can see it swishing around, all from this packet. So that's the plan for this brew. Use half of this in the brew and use the other half to harvest in a sterilised jar. Next time I'll double it again and use it again. So I'll let you know how that goes when I get it into the beer. So that's that. One or two other tips on my last video when we were looking at the hop rocket. Some people were asking me how I was checking the temperature of the chilled beer all the time, and the answer is one of these, which is a super cheap digital thermometer from eBay. I think it costs 99 pence. They're a bit flaky, the buttons don't work very well, etc. But for £1 works really well. This brew, I got one of these super cheap probes, and I'm going to try zip tying that onto the end of the outlet pipe, so that I can see if I can continually monitor. Because what I do is adjust the speed of flow of the wort through the chiller, and you have to keep going backwards and forwards checking the temperature. So to see a constant temperature readout, I think might be handy, and that was about £3 on eBay. Next little tip I was going to talk about was, I've heard a number of stories now of people using the new filter, you know, in the boiler, about the rubber end coming off when they've been stirring, accidentally knocking it off, and that's a bit of a disaster when you're brewing. So what I do now is I zip tie it on with a small zip tie like this onto that rubber end, pull it up tight, snip the excess end off. You can still pull it off at the end when you finish, you pull hard enough, but you're not going to knock it off if you zip tie it on. So I have a little packet of zip ties from the pound shop, and that's what I'm doing. These are in a nylon, it's not going to be a problem with that in your beer, in my opinion. So that's that tip. And the final tip is paperweights. So I quite often dry hop my beers, and I just soon discovered that pouring loose hops in they just float on the top, so I put them in a hop bag and then that floats on the top. So I scratched my head for quite a while for how to make it sink, and then I hit on paperweights. They're glass, they're smooth, you can sterilise them. So I tried paperweights and that worked really well. You still have to squish a little bit of the air out of the hop bag to make them sink sometimes. Then my wife said, well, where's that paperweight gone? From the living room, so I was busted on that front, but I had proof of concept by then. So again, back onto good old eBay, bought some unloved paperweights for very little money, £2 or £3. They're quite ugly usually, because that's why they're on eBay, nobody loves them or wants them. This one's quite nice. But you can repurpose them as hop bag weights, and they work well and keep your hops in your wort while you're dry hopping. So get yourself on eBay. You better be quick, because there might be a spike in the price of ugly paperweights on eBay now for your garden, but there you go. So that's my quick video update for today whilst I'm mashing. What have I got left? 3 minutes to my mash out step. So I'm going to go now, finish my beer off. I'll let you know how this fermentation goes. I'll check in with some iPhone footage or something to show you how that's going. And happy brewing.